Religious and ethnic minorities. Dear students, we all know that India is characterized by more ethnic and religious groups than most other countries of the world. Apart from the much noted 2000 odd caste, there are 8 major religions, 15 odd languages spoken in various dialects in all over the country, and a substantial number of tribes and sects. As you know, India, like many other countries in the world, is a home to a diverse set of religious and ethnic groups. On most days, in most places, members of these diverse groups enjoy their basic civil and political rights and freedom to pursue their beliefs. But unfortunately, that is not always the case. Tensions do exist, and for varying reasons, sometimes these tensions evolve into violence. Tensions may be aggravated by struggles over access to limited resource, particularly land, or by political rivalries, sometimes localized incidents, street fights, or local crime. Definition of minorities. We will start with the definition and characteristics of minorities. In pre-industrial societies, the human life was different from what it is today. The pre-industrial society was simple, small, and homogeneous. People in such societies used to share the same values, speak the same language, worship the same gods, and had very similar characteristics. But societies in the modern times have become heterogeneous. As a result of missionaries, colonization, work, migration, etc., these societies started reducing and become minorities. The physical features and cultural practices of these minorities were different from that of the dominant group. These wide differences came to be seen between the minorities and the dominant group. This led to the dominant group in these societies to differentiate between its members and the minority. Very often, unequal treatment is meted out to the members of the minority group, denying them equal access to power, wealth, and prestige. The concept of minority group is an important aspect of sociology. According to Wallace and Wallace, a minority group is one which has less power and influence than the dominant group. According to N.J. Smeltzer, a minority group is a group of people who, because of their physical or cultural characteristics, are singled out from the others in the society in which they live for differential and unequal treatment, and who therefore regard themselves as objects of collective discrimination. Minority as defined in India. In India, the term minority is not defined in the Constitution. Although minority forms a part of popular political discourse in India, still there is no precise and acceptable connotation of the term minority. The Indian discourse on minorities was overshadowed by the historical experience of partition of the country. Consequently, it defined and confined minorities within the parameters of the discourses of framed communalism versus secularism and nationalism versus separatism. The term minority is often used to denote those non-Hindu religious communities whose members are for one reason or another inclined to assert their distinctiveness in relation to Hindus. Thus, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Parsis and Jews are commonly described as minorities in India. The Indian Constitution recognizes only two types of minorities based on religion or language. It does not recognize minorities based on culture, ethnicity, race or nationality. However, the emergence of lower caste movements, communal identities and ethno-nationalism has resulted to the phenomena. Minority may be asserted as a part of a population differing from others in some characteristics and often subjected to differential treatment based on those characteristics. It is a numerically lesser group differentiated by one or more qualities such as race, ethnic, religion, language and caste. In almost every state, there are majorities sharing a common history and cultural backgrounds, and there are minority groups characterized by their own ethnic, linguistic or religious identity that differs from that of the majority population. There is hardly any country in the world where everyone speaks the same language, professes and practices the same religion, belongs to the same racial stock or whose cultural and ethnic identities are the same. Over the years, it is being claimed that democracy has been imperiled by the ethnic assertions and conflicts, but these assertions may be treated as political undercurrents that question as well as strengthen the believed democratic ethos of the modern state. These may also be taken as the assertions triggered by demands for justice from the disadvantaged groups who often respond to the logic of competitive politics. Characteristics of the minority group. Physically or socially visible group characteristics. Members of a minority group share physical or cultural characteristics that distinguish them from the dominant group. For example, all people who share the same skin color, religion, language are grouped into one category. The second characteristic is self-conscious group with a strong sense of oneness. The members of the minority group have a strong sense of solidarity due to the sufferings they have experienced, discrimination, etc. The third characteristic is suffers from unequal treatment. Minority group members experience unequal treatment and have less power over their lives than members of the dominant group over theirs. They are denied equal access to power, wealth and status. They are made to believe that they are inferior. The fourth characteristic is membership in minority group is not voluntary. Membership in a dominant or minority group is not voluntary but through one's birth. Religious minorities. India is a multilingual and multireligious country. Since very long time, people belonging to various religious communities have been living together in this country. Though the majority of the people are Hindus, people belonging to other religious communities such as Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists and others are also living along with the Hindus. By virtue of the numerical strength, the Hindus constitute the majority, while other religious communities come under what is known as religious minorities. The diversity of religious belief systems existing in India today is a result of both the existence of multiple native religions and also the assimilation and social integration of religions brought to the region. Muslims are the largest single minority community in India. We also have the Anglo-Indians who are a combination of racial, religious and linguistic characteristics. There are a number of problems and grievances of minorities in general and to certain religious groups in particular. Some of these problems are delicate, complex and some perceptible. The backwardness of these minorities in the country can be seen as they lack in majority economically and educationally. There are two commonly prevalent explanations regarding educational backwardness among these religions and minorities in contemporary India. One explanation is that they have been slow to take advantage of governmental liberal policy regarding education since independence due to their particular attitude or cultural ethos. There have been slow tendencies of these groups to respond positively to the modern, technical and professional education or take advantage of educational developments. This is due to the account of their resistance to modern education. For example, parents want their children to learn about Islam and Quran in case of Muslims. Such tendencies are gradually vanishing as learned Muslim or Muslim institutions are engaged in developing awareness among Muslim parents and their children towards the acquisition of education starting from very basic Islamic traditional schooling to the acquisition of education at college or university level. Hence, presently Muslims in comparison to the other communities in the country are almost proportionally equal in the pursuit of modern education. Every large society contains ethnic minorities and linguistic minorities. Their style of life, language, culture and origin can differ from the majority. The minority status is conditioned not only by a clearly numerical relation, but also by questions of political power. Ethnic minorities. For the past 10,000 years, humans have been spreading northward and southward and across the oceans to every corner of the globe. It is not as single group, but as innumerable societies. Each of these societies maintain its culture and think of them as we and others as they. Throughout the 10,000 years, members of different physical and cultural diversity are conflicting, competing, but are also coexisting. This human division based on cultural traits are called ethnic group. Ethnic group is regarded as a human group which has its national origin or distinctive cultural patterns. They have a different language, religion, race and country of origin. Membership in an ethnic group is believed to be passed on from generation to generation. Ethnic group further came to reflect the different kinds of encounters industrialized states have had with external groups such as immigrants and indigenous people. They refer to people with distinct cultural identities who through migration or conquest had become subject to a state or nation with a different cultural mainstream. The members of the ethnic group belong to the minority section. Ethnic minorities may face rejection by other groups in their societies. They may be underrepresented or unfairly represented in government and local ruling parties. They may be discriminated against or may face racism and conflict with other communities. Conflicts and discrimination occur in all societies due to lack of understanding, misconception, preconception and ignorance. Indigenous people are ethnic minorities who have been marginalized as their historical territories became part of a state. In international or national legislation, they are generally defined as having a set of specific rights based on their historical ties to a particular territory and to their cultural or historical distinctiveness from politically dominant population. The concept of indigenous people may define them as particularly vulnerable to exploitation, marginalization and oppression by nations or states that may still be in the process of colonialism or by politically dominant ethnic groups. The native people of India are called scheduled tribes in the constitution. Unevenly distributed throughout the subcontinent, the tribes are found in a vast majority in the northeastern states and union territories. 88% in Nagaland, 80% in Meghalaya and 70% in Arunachal Pradesh. Half of the country's tribal population is found in the three states of Madhya Pradesh, Bihar and Orissa. The numerically dominant tribes are 4 million Gonds of central India, that is Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh, 4 million Bhils of western India, that is Rajasthan and Gujarat, and 3 million Santals of eastern India, Bihar, Orissa and West Bengal. The smallest tribal community is the Andamanis with a population of just 19. The scheduled tribes are the earliest inhabitants of India. Most Indians consider the tribal communities which live in isolated and self-contained groups as wholly distinct from them culturally and ethnically. This is because the tribal culture is entirely different from that of the civilized people. The tribals cannot understand the civilized people, their culture, customs and traditions, and hence are wary about the civilized people. These tribal people are economically the poorest people of India. Majority of them live under the poverty line. Their economies are based on agriculture at the crudest form. They are innocent, illiterate and hence get exploited by the outsiders or the civilized men. Another problem that they are facing is the loss of their land to the outsiders. The concept of health and sanitation is totally ignored. They do not believe in the modern methods of sanitation or medical facility. They believe that the diseases are caused because of angry spirits. In the modern time, the ethnic groups have started questioning regarding their land and status when compared to others. They think that they are discriminated in the matter of economic development or their culture or traditions are being threatened. It is this feeling which has resulted in a number of ethnic movements. The ethnic groups have started demanding a different state. The recent formation of the states of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Uttarakhand are all examples of the result of ethnic movements. Problems of the minorities. Minorities face prejudices or prejudged attitude towards members of another group. These groups are regarded with hostility simply because they belong to a particular group and they are assumed to have undesirable qualities that are supposed to be the characteristics of the group as a whole. Minorities also suffer from discrimination. This discrimination takes place when the dominant group regards itself as entitled to social advantages and uses its power to secure those advantages at the expense of the minority groups. These advantages may include in the form of political power for itself, right to high status jobs, etc. They are also looked upon as a scapegoat. The minorities are always blamed in times of any problem arising in the society. Because of the attitude of the dominant class people, the minorities are being oppressed and discriminated in the society. Welfare measures for the minorities. Constitutional provisions for the protection of the minorities. The Constitution of India treats minorities on par with other people. Article 14 of the Constitution assures them equality before law. Article 15 prohibits discriminatory treatment. Article 16 provides for equal employment opportunities in the public sector. Article 29, Section 2 provides equality of educational opportunities. Articles 29 and 30 provide protection to the linguistic, educational and cultural rights of the minorities. Article 46 consists of provisions that protect the economic and educational interests of the tribals. During 1985, a program was introduced for the welfare of the minorities. The program was for the protection against communal riots and also appointing the minorities in the police department, banks, railways, etc. Looking at the National Commission for the Minorities in 1978, the Government of India set up a Minorities Commission for minorities to evaluate the workings of the various safeguards in the Constitution for the protection of the religious minorities and to make effective recommendations to ensure that it is implemented and enforced. Several economic programs and facilities have also been implemented by the government. Crafts and home industries have been encouraged. Integrated tribal development projects have been evolved for the development of the tribals. Schools have been established in some tribal areas and education up to 10th has been made compulsory. Various medical facilities have also been provided for them. Medical camps are being organized in the tribal areas to enable them to realize the importance of modern medical facilities. To conclude, the government is taking measures for the welfare of the minorities, but still there is a long way to go for the minority group to come into mainstream and for people to understand the need for it. This disparity is not only seen in India, it is seen globally. Since India is a land of diverse culture and state and with a big population, it will take some time for the welfare measures to show its impact. Sometimes people and whole communities are judged on their appearances without fully understanding them. This can only be overcome by both communities developing tolerance and respect for each other. The different communities need to listen to each other, learn about each other in order to live in harmony together. They must work towards finding a compromise and not resorting to any violence or abusive behavior. There has to be a change in the mindset of all the people to lead a harmonious life.